Hello, I'm Tommaso Ascoli and I work at the National Institute for the Infectious Diseases in Rome. The name was taken by the famous microbiologist, and our institute was built in 1936, and since that year it had an important role in managing the infectious diseases that affected our countries, like tuberculosis, polio, and HIV since the 80s, and now antimicrobial resistance, of course. And it is structured in different departments, which are involved in the study of the main fields of our study, which are the hepatology, immune-compromised patients, HIV. The department in which I work, which is about highly infectious diseases and tropical medicine, and tuberculosis and transplants. Our department is structured in an inward structure with 32 beds and a day hospital for an outpatient clinic and a travel clinic to give advice to people going to travel to tropical areas and to administer vaccines and anti-malarial prophylaxis. Our institute is actually an IRCCS, which means that we work both on patients' care but also on research about the main infectious threats that affect our country nowadays. We work mostly on tropical medicine in my department. And our main focus, of course, is malaria, which is a parasitic infection caused by one of these 5 species of Plasmodium. And it is a disease transmitted by mosquitoes. And actually, nowadays, it is a tropical disease, which means that we only can have this disease go into tropical areas. But since the second half of the last century, it was a disease that affected mostly every region of our country. And so these are the countries from which our patients come from when they get malaria. And we receive more or less 50 cases of malaria every year. Between 10 and 20% of them are classified as severe malaria, and this is a very important date because this might be a medical emergency. It is a life-threatening disease. And for our research, we are leading a project, a national project, and we are working with other 14 hospitals all around the country. And our first aim is to create a national registry for the cases of severe and complicated malaria managed in our Italian hospitals. We also have a foreign cooperation institute in the Gambia. And we also we collect a big amount of data from our admitted patients regarding their clinical history, their demographic data, and follow up to try to understand which are the data that are mainly related to our outcome, which means if the patient survives or not, or if he develops complications. And we also are working in cooperation with other institutes in Italy and abroad. We are working on a project with the Istituto Superiore di Sanità, also located in Rome, to try to understand the molecular mechanism of resistance of malaria to our antimicrobial drugs, and to try to understand the role of our immunological system to fight against the parasite, and why some people develop a severe malaria and some people have quite a mild disease. And we are also trying to understand, this is a very ambitious project, if there is a connection between malaria parasites and our microbiota. Microbiota is the normal flora living in our bowel, on our skin, and in other parts of our body. And this is okay. We can go on. And we are trying to analyze the microbial flora of our bowel on malaria patients, both admitted to our institute, but of course we have much more samples coming from Africa, from the Gambia, which is an endemic country. And we also have an important project with our department of our institute and of your institute, and we try to use supervised machine learning to understand the features related to the outcome on a big cohort of African children affected by malaria, coming from these 5 countries. And we are working also to other tropical diseases, like, I will go fast on it, like arbovirosis, which are the viral diseases transmitted by different kind of arthropods, like mosquitoes or ticks. And one of the most important is chikungunya, which looks, from the name, you can think is such an exotic disease, but actually it is spreading around the world. And 2 years ago, during the summertime, we had an outbreak of this disease, of local transmission in our region in Lazio, of more than 300 cases, because the spread of this disease goes together with the spread of the Aedes albopictus, which is the tiger mosquito. And of course, now it is in Italy, and this is the main kind of mosquito in our region. And the last project we are working on is the Chagas diseases, which is recognized as neglected diseases by the WHO. It takes the name from the scientists who discovered it in Brazil, and it is an endemic disease of all the Latin America. And so our institute is participating to a wider project for the screening of the disease in people who are at risk, who are mainly people who came from Latin America. And it is a very difficult to diagnose disease, because at the beginning they have an acute infection, which goes by itself without any problem. And after 20, 30 years, it can appear again and give important intestinal and cardiac disease that are life-threatening. So we are trying to identify people who are living in Italy and who have this disease, and try to care about themselves. Thank you.